Full jump complete. Running preliminary diagnostics. I sense Remus. We have reached the Ilia system. Structural failure of the Tiqqun is near. We should initiate the Neocon colonization protocol.
Welcome back to IXION for our last episode of this Let's Play. We've already covered prologue and all first 4 chapters, so don't hesitate to check in the video description below if you want to see them all. And yes, we start today the 5th chapter, the last one. I mean, if you're there, you're probably already very familiar with the game, so I'm not gonna go into all of the details. As you can see on the screen, as soon as I arrive, I'm trying to find a bit of resources, in particular some ice, to make sure that my water, I can get some water and therefore some food. We have almost 6,000 people. The goal is to find Remus, so we're gonna want, to send some probe. There is also a second planet, it's actually Romulus, and this is the link between, the 2 endings of this game. One ending is if you go with Remus, one ending is if you go with Romulus. You will have a couple of other planets for sure on the map, like this one that you can see over here. As always, you can do a couple of different choices. I always go with investing, right? Building basically an infrastructure. It costs some resources, but it usually gives you a lot more. Then with this, you can continue to do some research if you haven't finished the research, all those type of things. And at some point when you find Remus, you're gonna have these greetings from the Agora. They're going to explain to you what's happening.
People of the VVS Tiqqun, I am Agora of the 3rd generation. We, the IXION guides, know that you have been searching for Remus for a long time. However, we have established a delicately balanced ecosystem here on this planet that cannot suffer your presence. We remember DOLOS as our first and closest ally, as the one who made the Neocon Parsheville teachings visible. Pioneers of genetic conatus, you have suffered repression, persecution, and extermination. In memory of the doors you opened for us, of our common past, it is our turn to open the door for you. There is a way for you and your crew to join us. You may be a part of our community. Shape it. We will no longer be we. You will no longer be you. We will become us. For this to happen, you will need to be genetically optimized for life on Remus. We will incorporate your genetic heritage into our society. You will follow the elder process my predecessor applied to us. You will be adapted to the planet's gravity, to photosynthesize. You will live in symbiosis with Remus. Let me be clear, humanity's mistake has been its attempts to transform ecosystems, to deny its place in them. We do not terraform, we change. We are not intruders. We are a crystalline part of the ecosystem. You will live longer and work according to your abilities and passions. Our elites guide us with pragmatism, intellect, empathy, and with sensibility. We have no other interest than to follow genetic conatus. Let us show you the new cradle of humanity. Trust in genetic conatus. We followed a self-similar pattern.
Unfortunately, when you move close to Remus, the BMS ship, right, the Paradise, will appear. It is not dead, and so now you're gonna have to defeat it once and for all.
The presence of a BMS warship in the Ilia system.
Oopsie.
The Piranesi has followed in the footsteps of your Vol trace. We have no weapons, no military solution against such an enemy. To ensure the survival of this settlement in Ilia, you will have to find a way to silence him, once and for all.
Administrator, I am not dead yet. I will and your pitiful community. I will build my rebirth. Are you ready for your simulation?
There will also be a side quest where you'll be given the choice to disconnect Eden, our personal assistant, right? Because apparently this is kind of preventing us from going against DOLOS. This is what you want to do if you want to go with Romulus. If you want to go with Remus, you can leave it on. It's not a problem. Remus is over here, Romulus is there. And again, you choose which one you want to go for. You will only be able to do one, not both. If you want to go to Romulus, you're going to have to train 3,000 colonists, construct a couple of sites, which basically means giving, some resources. And last but not least, construct 20 shuttles, which are basically, you spend a bit of composites. Right? At the same time, you will also definitely have to get, regardless of Romulus or Remus, build enough battery to cover an area of 1,000 tiles. So at that point, I opened the last sector. We had one sector that wasn't, done. We opened that one and we put more batteries on it to be able to do it. When those batteries are built, they're also going to need to be charged. But then, yeah, you're going to be able to do all of this. And it is, as you can see, for example, I have a lot of batteries there. I do have also a nuclear facility. We're very close to having enough colonists. Right? So we're going to be able soon to finish the game.
Administrator, if you are listening to this message, it means the Tiqqun has reached its destination, despite the unpredictable parameters that framed the equation of its journey.
It's a big explosion.
The crew have found a new home, whether the one planned for or another. These survivors have already begun to lay the foundations of a new cradle, where creativity, invention, and joy can bloom again. Perhaps you already understand why I insisted, why the mission launch was precipitated. When I discovered that the lunaclism was inevitable, I also understood that any attempt to save our species after this would have been doomed to fail. You took the helm in the only launch window available to us. Thanks to you, our efforts, our mistakes, our sins and sacrifices will sink into oblivion, into the past, while the first pages are written for a newly born humanity.
On the other hand, for Remus, you're going to need to find 3 temples. You can see them over here. You can either explore or just get a blueprint. And with the third one, the temple of the free will is on this side, right? So you send, your science ship as always. You get those blueprints. You bring them back home. And remember, you also need to do the same thing for the tiles, right? Create a lot of batteries like you can see me doing now. And with those blueprints, you're going to need to build something new, which you need to research actually first. This is the last over here, the bioengineering center, because you need to sort of transform your crew, adapt them to the Remus conditions, a bit different. So it's a couple of science points. Make sure that you have them. It takes around 1 cycle, 2 cycles. So it's not a lot, but then you're going to have to build this thing. And I guarantee you this thing is actually huge. You're going to see it in a second. It also costs tons of resources. We're talking about like 500 of alloy and I think it was 8 of electronics or 9 electronics. Here it is. So suggest you build a couple of depots, right? Because each depot only has 5 drones. So having multiples, it can build it quicker.
If you are listening to this message, it means the Tiqqun has reached its destination, despite the unpredictable parameters that framed the equation of its journey. The crew have found a new home, whether the one planned for or another. These survivors have already begun to lay the foundations of a new cradle, where creativity, invention, and joy can bloom again. Perhaps you already understand why I insisted, why the mission launch was precipitated. When I discovered that the luniclism was inevitable, I also understood that any attempt to save our species after this would have been doomed to fail. You took the helm in the only launch window available to us. Thanks to you, our efforts, our mistakes, our sins and sacrifices will sink into oblivion, into the past, while the first pages are written for a newly born humanity.
And it is, ladies and gents, these are the two ends for IXION. Obviously, each end also gives you different achievements on Steam, very different in terms of the visuals and probably the life that your people are going to be living. You can, in both of these, you can save the planet, right? You can also lose Remus if you go for Romulus and still win, not a problem. Now, I know IXION is not the game of the year. There was definitely, especially at launch, a couple of problems. But honestly, I had a blast, you know. I think this game has a lot of challenges. I did beat the game, I think, pretty easily by just spending as much time as possible in the first few chapters, developing a lot there. But this is still a pretty good challenge, especially, you know, if we go into the challenge mode, I can guarantee you it's going to be a lot harder. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't hesitate to tell me in the comments below if you have any questions, thoughts, or requests. And I hope to see you next time.